Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Toms River branch of the Ocean County Library. My name is Diane Musella, and I work in the Toms River Information Services Department. Tonight's program is being brought to you by the Ocean County Library, the Ocean County Genealogical Society, and the New Jersey State Library. So first, a little bit about the Ocean County Genealogical Society. The Ocean County Genealogical Society is a group of folks who love family history. They enjoy getting together to have fun sharing their genealogical research, adventures, and helping each other find ways around brick walls that hide their ancestors. They meet March through December on the first Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. in the Hometown Dairy Room at the Toms River branch of the Ocean County Library. Their members cover a wide range of expertise, from experience to beginner. They do research all around the country, not just in Ocean County. They also have speakers come to some of their meetings to talk about research topics that can aid in their members, and all are welcome. Tonight, we are fortunate to have Regina Fitzpatrick from the New Jersey State Library. Regina Fitzpatrick is Genealogy Librarian at the New Jersey State Library. In addition to the genealogy collection, a non-circulating 18,000 plus item collection, she also oversees the map and atlas collection and the New Jersey State Library Archives collection. Prior to working at the library, Regina worked for the New Jersey State Archives, where she became an expert on New Jersey genealogical collections, including Revolutionary and Civil War military collections, and helping to conduct family history research. At the State Library, Regina currently provides general reference services in addition to specific genealogy assistance, and teaches classes on conducting New Jersey genealogy research. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. And now let me hand it over to Regina Fitzpatrick.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. And hi, I'm Regina. We're going to be talking a little bit about genealogy resources at the New Jersey State Library. Before we dive in, I just wanted to let you know that this class was first developed before the pandemic, and several changes have been made to it since the pandemic. One of the biggest changes, which I'm sure will be relevant to all of you up in Ocean County, is I've tried to point out when things are remotely available as much as possible, and I will try to do that throughout the presentation. When I spoke to Debbie about coming for the Ocean County Genealogical Society, we talked about how many of you were interested in non-New Jersey resources. So I will be covering a little of that. However, this class is meant to be a very high level overview. I will be covering both New Jersey and non-New Jersey resources tonight. So with that, let's dive in, and we are going to start off with New Jersey resources, and we're going to be looking at a collection that is not necessarily focused on New Jersey genealogy. This is the State Library's Jerseyanna collection. The Jerseyanna collection is a very large collection, and its goal is to collect published items and artifacts about all things New Jersey, people, history, events, and culture. Most of the time when I direct people to the Jerseyanna collection, it's to do historical context research. However, there are some great specific genealogical treasures that are buried within this collection that are going to be useful to New Jersey family history researchers, and also to other people who are doing things like historic house research or historic business research as well. The first specific example are the Images of America books. They're also called the Arcadia books. They're published by Arcadia Publishing. And those are those photo compilations that you see, and they're usually titled Historic and Town Name. We have tons of those. And this is where you might find images of a historic house, local historic house or business. So this is truly fantastic if you're researching either a local historic home or a business that may have been in your family to try to find a picture of it. In addition, and remember, I did mention I would be pointing out things that were remotely available. The Georgiana collection includes a pretty extensive digital collection as well. And this includes a small photograph collection, and you can see an example of this is Atlantic City in 1928, I believe. That's part of our digitized photo collection. We also have a historic postcards collection, which include tourist images of local towns. Both of the picture and postcard collections are digitized and are available to researchers from home 24/7. For the Images of America books, you do need to either one, interlibrary loan them through your local public library, or you need to come down to this state library to look at them and to check them out. One of the nice things about the Georgiana collection is that it is a circulating collection, so it is available to researchers. Materials are available to check out or to interlibrary loan, which is very nice. And we're going to talk about the genealogy collection, and unfortunately that's not the case there. Some other great things that you can find within the Georgiana collection that might help you conduct your family history research. There are military regimental histories, mostly focused on the Revolutionary and Civil War. So if you're researching New Jersey regiments from either one of those conflicts, this is a really fantastic resource. You can find out more information about a regiment that your ancestor may have served in, and there may be biographical or other information about your ancestors published within these works. If you are researching a historic business or would like to learn more information about your ancestor who worked for a particular business or a particular industry, the state library has industrial directories that are part of the Georgiana collection back to 1901. These are excellent business resources, although they don't include things like employee names or employee records. If your ancestor was a business owner, there might potentially be more information about them in these works, and there will definitely be more information about the business itself, so you could learn a little bit more about where your ancestor may have worked. We also, for historical context research, we have tons of published books about New Jersey industry and manufacturing, some of which go back to the colonial era. For instance, right next to the current site of the New Jersey State House, there used to be a mill there. There are archaeological ruins that you can go and tour. It's right by the Old Barracks Museum if you ever come to Trenton. And this was a site of a major pottery factory that did date back to the 18th century, which is incredibly cool. So there are books about industries that have existed in New Jersey for hundreds of years. So you can learn more about what your ancestor may have done professionally as well. Probably most importantly, for genealogical research, there are church histories in the Georgiana collection and town and county histories as well. You can usually dig up some good biographical information, especially if your ancestor was a more prominent local resident. Church histories are really fantastic because they show when your ancestor was active in the church. These are also very likely to include church records, which may include marriage and baptism records. Another really useful resource from the Georgiana collection is the Proceedings of the New Jersey Historical Society. Again, there are lots of written scholarly articles in here, but there are also collection and index and record transcriptions, which can be incredibly useful. Something that people don't think of a lot to research when they're doing genealogical research is to look into their ancestors' social activities. This was a very prominent part of people's lives for many years. And publications put out by local social organization often have member biographical data. They often have obituaries when somebody died. They often have social news. I've found wedding announcements in these type of publication, and we actually have a pretty extensive collection of these social club and civic organization or professional directories as well that are a truly fantastic resource for supporting your New Jersey family history research. Also, if you're doing research more into the 20th century, we have a large collection of New Jersey phone books on microfiche. So even if you're looking to reconnect to somebody who you used to know a long time ago, a former neighbor, or maybe somebody you went to high school or college with, this can be a really fantastic resource that might help you reconnect with somebody. So as I said, the Jersiana collection might surprise you with how useful it is for New Jersey genealogy research. If you're not really interested in doing genealogy research, but are interested in researching New Jersey culture and history, this is another fantastic collection with a great way that provides you great opportunity to do that. In addition to the physical book collection, there is also a digital collection, again, that's available freely from home 24/7. So I highly recommend that even though you're focused on genealogy, you make the Jersiana collection a part of your research as well at the state library. So now we are going to jump in and talk about the specific genealogy collection at the New Jersey State Library. The largest part of our genealogy holdings is our book collection. The New Jersey State Library catalog is always available to you 24/7 from home. I talked about how the Jersiana collection was a circulating collection. Well, unfortunately, the genealogy collection is non-circulating. And the reason for this is because many genealogy books are older and they go out of print very quickly. So if we loaned out a book and it disappeared, we wouldn't have a mechanism to replace it. So non-circulating means you can't check the physical book out of the library. You also cannot interlibrary loan. You need to come to the state library in order to use the physical genealogy collection. However, I'm going to tell you about how you can use the catalog, and that may make some of the resources a little bit more accessible from home. So our goal for the book collection is to enable researchers to follow their ancestors' lives both outside and within New Jersey, particularly in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries. This is the era that genealogical books tend to focus a lot of attention on. And so the vast majority of our books are pretty strong in this particular time period. A sizable minority of our book collection is family histories. And the photo that you see to the right is my photo of just one row of our family histories. The family histories make up about a third of our total book collection. You can browse the shelves if you come to the state library. They kind of work like biographies, how biographies are set up at your public library, where they're in alphabetical order by surname. However, as many of us know, family history research is made up of families which are created through marriage. So you're throwing a bunch of different last names together. So really, what you are going to want to do if you want to identify all of the family history books that we have for a particular surname is you're going to want to use the state library's catalog, which again, as a reminder, is available to you from home 24/7. So this is fantastic for building a book list of all the books that we have in our collection, because our catalogers have gone through all of the indexes and pulled all the surnames, which is really fantastic. I love our catalogers. They are amazing. So this means when you do a subject keyword search using the surname that you want plus the word family. So for example, Green family, if I was interested in finding books about the Greens, the results list is going to show you a complete listing of family histories where that particular name appears. In other words, if I was looking up Green, I might find the Green in an Abbott book. I might find them in a Washington book. I might find them in a Jackson book. So I want all of those in a list. So you can use the state library catalog to build a book list. You can then sort that list by publication date. Many genealogy books were published pre-US copyright, which is 1926 right now. So if you identify all the books pre-1926 in your results list, you can email yourself the results. It'll come up with a nice HTML linked listing. You can then copy and paste the titles of the pre-1926 family histories into Google and see if you can find them digitized on Happy Trust, on archive.org, on Google Books, or other free repository sites. So that's a fantastic way to access New Jersey State Library genealogy items from home. So in addition to our family histories, which is probably the most popular part of our book collection, we have an extensive New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey book collection. These are mostly indexes to collections or their transcribed records, which is really fantastic and useful. A lot of people did not make big dramatic moves. They just crossed nearby state lines. So we've worked hard to make sure that we have a large Pennsylvania and New York collection to support, the region as a whole, and to find people who did not migrate very far. However, we do understand that a lot of people moved from far away to New Jersey. So we do have books from all over the country, plus some international resources that may help you conduct your genealogy research as well. We know a lot of people are doing general military research, so we have a very extensive collection on general US military resources for pre-World War II conflicts. We have an entire shelf, a literal bookshelf, floor to ceiling, of just heraldry guides. So if you know that you are related to European nobility, you can do your heraldry research at the state library. And we have European and American ethnic resources as well as books about doing genealogy research for particular religious groups. This is just a small sampling of what our collection does include. As far as the last point, I know one side of my family goes back to the Mayflower. Most of the other families that I'm related to are immigrants. And on one side of my family, I'm mostly Italian. And so I used some of the books in our collection about Italian immigrant. They had an Italian surname guide. So I was able to find a lot of really useful information on my Italian surnames that I know that I'm related to. So that's just a small example of how a non-New Jersey resource might be particularly useful to somebody researching in our collection. So that's kind of an overview of our books. But the genealogy collection is not only books. We also have an extensive collection of city directories, and I always like to highlight these because these are probably right up there with family histories in terms of use. Our city directory collection is not cataloged in the regular library catalog. but it does have its own separate little PDF catalog that you can download and see from home. And then what I said about pre-1926 goes here. You can look up you can look through our holdings and use that as a guide for pre-1926 and look online and see if you can find a digitized copy of that city directory online. If you are not familiar with city directories, these are a really fantastic resource for establishing residency in particular, and also helping to narrow down death dates or dates when somebody may have moved or migrated in between census years. So city directories are an annual publication, which includes an alphabetical listing of residents within a year, but it includes so much more. There are business listings, crisscross directories, listing of government officials, advertisements. There are indexes by advertisements, indexes by businesses. So it's really fantastic for doing more than just searching for a particular individual. As I said, it's really fantastic for narrowing down dates when somebody moved or when somebody died. We have about 1,000 New Jersey city directories, and the format for these are in books. We do have some in books. However, the vast majority of them are in microfilm. We also, again, because we want to provide residents of New Jersey who are not researching in New Jersey with ways to research their ancestors. We have 258 city directories that are non-New Jersey related. We have a really nice collection of Philly city directories if you're looking in that particular area. In addition to using our little catalog that you can download, you can also check for particular editions of a city directory that you're interested in looking at on Ancestry.com. They have a collection called U.S. City Directories 1822 to 1995, and I can vouch for the fact that they have a lot of what we have in our city directory collection. Not all, but some. I put a screenshot of one of the Trenton city directories. I believe this is for 1909. Just to give you an idea of what they look like. You see it's alphabetical by the person's last name. Oftentimes it has the person's occupation and their home address. Sometimes in parentheses, it will include their business address or other information. You can sometimes identify when somebody has been widowed and their former husband's surname as well. So if you have not looked into city directories for doing your family history research in the 19th and 20th century, highly recommend this as a resource that you should check out if you haven't yet. Also, as an aside, I have a genealogy information video that is specifically about city directories. I use a lot of New Jersey examples in that particular video, but most non-New Jersey city directories are structured exactly the same way as the New Jersey ones. So you can take the information in that video and apply it to non-New Jersey city directories as well. We also have a really big newspaper collection. Many people come to us who are looking for family obituaries in particular, and sometimes marriage announcements as well. Our newspaper collection is largely on microfilm and covers a lot of the 20th century. However, what I should note in particular for this audience is that the state library, unfortunately, does not have any Ocean County newspapers. We may have some in our electronic subscriptions, but we don't have any that are part of our physical collection. But if you are researching outside of Ocean County for New Jersey, we do have all of the 20 other New Jersey counties represented in some form on microfilm or in paper format. To support our newspaper collection, our physical newspaper collection, we do have digital subscriptions, which include a news bank. I pointed out the Historic Trenton Times in particular because, of course, at the State Library, we are based in Mercer County. That's our local newspaper. And so if you are doing Mercer County research, highly recommend looking at the Historic Trenton Times. We have ProQuest Historic Newspapers and New York Times access as well. ProQuest Historic Newspapers has newspapers from all across the United States, several short runs of historic New Jersey newspapers. You can also access the New York Times both separately and part of the ProQuest newspaper subscription. You can use our digital subscriptions if you come in person to the State Library. If you are doing colonial or Revolutionary era research, we have the New Jersey State Gazette and all its various and sundry names. This is a very old newspaper. It was started in Burlington County in 1777, later moved to Trenton and became the state's kind of official newspaper. So this is really fantastic if your ancestor lived in Trenton, but also if your ancestor was any part of state government. It's incredibly useful for historic research during that time. If you are doing New Jersey colonial research, we also have published extracts from American newspapers related to New Jersey, plus 2 published follow-up series that go up to 1795. The initial series, which covers 1704 to 1780, was published pre-copyright law. It was published in 1914. So all volumes are digitized and you can find them online on archive.org and on HathiTrust. If you are doing New Jersey colonial research, I highly recommend checking this out. Also, if you're doing any kind of historic house research and your home dates to the 18th century, again, highly recommend checking this out. This published series has all kinds of newspaper articles about New Jersey. If your ancestor was indentured or enslaved and they fled, there are runaway ads that include detailed physical descriptions of runaways, which would be incredibly useful. There are state sales, obituaries, death and marriage notices, announcements, social news. In the extracts from American newspapers, I once found, I was researching a Revolutionary War soldier, or who I thought was a Revolutionary War soldier, and instead I found out that this man was indicted for murder. And so there are a few articles in the published extracts that allowed me to learn more about his case, which is truly fantastic. Again, so I have, that case is actually the image on the far right of the screen, information about that particular case. And then, of course, most people are doing obituary research. So I pulled a screenshot from the New York Evening News from September 1950 of some death notices. This is mostly what people are looking for, quite honestly, when they are researching within our newspaper collection. And we do have an extensive collection, like I said, to serve many people. We do have some out-of-state resources as well. I believe we have both the Philadelphia Inquirer and the New York Times on microfilm, and we have some colonial newspapers from around the 13 colonies as well on microfilm. So if you're doing colonial research outside of New Jersey, we may be able to help you find newspaper articles on that as well. So again, I want to give you as much as possible that you can access from home. So we have a service called LibGuides. We also refer to them as research guides, which are great. The LibGuides is a service that allows us on the reference staff to very quickly build these great subject information pages that are laid out very nicely. are very easy for people to locate and find information and are very visually attractive. So I've done one on genealogy. It does focus a lot on New Jersey genealogy because that's where my subject specialty expertise is. So I've tried very hard to include information about the state library's holdings, the state archives holdings. The New Jersey State Library and the New Jersey State Archives are two completely separate organizations. Lots of people confuse us, but we are separate. And county office holdings. And again, the county offices are their own unique entities. They are completely separate from either the state library or the state archives. But having those major resources scattered to various places can be very confusing. So I've tried to include as much information as I can about that. When we were locked down and when the state library building was 100% closed and I did not have access to our collections, I went on a search to create a resource that would give people a one-stop shop to find all of the regional, United States, and subject area resources, particularly indexes and digital collections that I could find, and I shoved them all into one document. It's linked on the genealogy research guide. I call it the genealogy and quarantine document. So I really hope that this is something that is useful. I hope that you're able to find a lot of things that you can use and access from home. I focus largely on the Mid-Atlantic region because I just do not have time to do the entire United States, but I did include general US resources and some general genealogy advice. I've done tons of webinars over the course of the last few years. I've also created pre-recorded mini classes that I call genealogy information videos. And I talk about various subjects that have become frequently asked questions or parts of our collections that I think should be highlighted. I mentioned before I had one of these on city directories, for example. I have another one about the difference between the state library and the state archives, which we're going to discuss in a minute. I have all of this content, again, available to you from home 24/7. So you can watch some of my other classes, you can watch the genealogy information videos. In addition to the recorded classes, I also have tons of paper guides and handouts that you can download from the genealogy research guide. Again, we have all kinds of LibGuides or research guides on a wide variety of subjects. They are not all related to genealogy. However, I've listed the other guides that I think will be really useful for those of you who are doing genealogy. One of these is the newspaper research guide. The newspaper research guide is a complete listing of the state library's newspaper collection holdings. So that's what we have in our collection. So you can use this to check and make sure that we have a particular paper before you plan a research visit to us. You can check and see what our digital subscriptions are if you want to come to our building and use the digital subscriptions on our computers, and you can find all kinds of useful other links about newspapers and where you can find more New Jersey newspaper information. Finally, a group of librarians work together to identify where people could find any digitized historic New Jersey newspaper they could think of. These are any New Jersey newspaper that's available online, whether or not it's in a free local repository or as part of Ancestry or Genealogy Bank or newspapers.com. For the vast majorities of these papers, they're not part of the state library collection. This is meant to be a guide to help you find and identify where you can go to get these particular New Jersey newspapers, but we don't necessarily have them. We might, and when we have something, we usually indicate, yes, we do have this. and you can access it through us. So these are just 3 examples of useful things that we might have that you can access from home and that might help you with your genealogical research. So before we end, I do just want to note that there is a difference between the state library and the state archives. And I want to make sure that you're aware, if you are doing New Jersey genealogy research, particularly during the vital records era, which is May of 1848 up through the present, you're probably going to want to go to the state archives, because vital records are going to give you tons of biographical information. And the state archives is the repository for New Jersey vital records from May of 1848 up through the early 20th century and beyond if you visit them in person. Why does the state archives have all of this information? It's because they're the repository for all New Jersey state records. And this includes a large amount of genealogical collections, like the vital records, that is birth, marriage, and death indexes. Again, I want to make the state archives accessible to you. Visit their website because they have online indexes, order forms, and they also have digital collections, and not just photograph collections. For example, they've recently started making digitized version of their early land records available. And if you do a search in their early land records database, you'll now see a little picture icon next to the record that you can click on and see and download a high quality scan of the document. So you don't even have to order it any longer. It's free, although you can still order a copy if you would like one. As I mentioned, they've got the vital records. They've got military records. So if you came, you looked in the Georgiana collection and you found your ancestor, said, I wonder if he had a military service record. You would go over to the state archives if he served in the Revolution or the Civil War. There are wills, deeds, court records, and also naturalization records. Many of us had immigrant ancestor, and you may want to know whether or not they naturalized. And if you're looking after 1906, you're going to find a lot of biographical information in their naturalization records. So I posted a screenshot of my genealogy information video about what the state archives has versus what the state library has. Again, although I'm talking about the state archives, I don't work for the state archives. I work for the state library. They are 2 completely separate organizations. I did spend years working at the state archives, so I do know a whole lot about their collections, and I am able to answer some questions, but in many cases, I'm going to be directing you to them, either to make research appointments or to talk to them to get more details about collections and what and how you can access certain items. So that is where I'm going to end, everyone. Again, I did want to make sure you were aware about what we have at the state library and how we can help you do genealogy research. But I also want to make sure that you know when you're looking for records, you go to the state archives as well. And I hope I've given you a lot of good examples of what we have to offer to you and how you can go to our neighbor, the state archives, who's literally 2 doors down from us as well. So if you plan a research trip to Trenton, you can hit both facilities if you would like and come and research with us. So thank you so much. My contact information is here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you all so much for being with us tonight and for listening to me blather on. And I'll leave this screen up while we're answering questions.
Thank you, Regina. Does anyone have any questions?
Is the library still in the same building, the same place it's been all along, or has it moved?
Yeah, so we're still at 185 West State Street. We're still right next to the Capitol. Our location has not changed. However, if you came to visit the state archives 20 plus years ago, they used to be located in the state library building. They've moved 2 doors down to 225 West State Street. So they're a block away from us. You still park in the same underground garage. That's free. Go to both facilities or one or the other of us. So we are right adjacent if you are planning a research trip.
The other thing is the out-of-state books that you have. I haven't been there quite a long time now, but as I recall, there were whole stacks of books from other states. Were they alphabetical according to state name? How did you have them listed? I couldn't remember.
So they're organized regionally. So basically what happens is if you're looking for United States books based on region, we start at the top of the 13 colonies and we go down. So we start with Maine and we go down to Georgia, and then we kind of swing out west. So that's how they're organized on the shelves.
Okay, yeah, I got something from Maryland and something from Rhode Island, but I couldn't remember exactly how it was listed. It's been so long. Okay, that was very helpful for me. I found a lot of good stuff there.
Oh, good.
If we go into your library, is there somebody that can help us to steer us in the right direction as to what we're looking for?
Absolutely.
Very good.
So we always have a reference librarian on duty at the reference desk during visiting hours. Right now, State Library is open to visitors, completely open, where you can just show up from 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. You can also make a research appointment if you would like to come in earlier from 8:30 to 10 a.m. And yeah, so there will always be a reference librarian on duty to help you. And I'm in 5 days a week. So if you have any highly specific genealogy collection, or if you do want to set up a research appointment in advance, and you can do this anytime during our visiting hours, not just 8:30 to 10 a.m. You absolutely can. You can send me an email or give me a call and give me a list of books. Obviously, if you're giving me a list of books or materials you would like me to pull for you in advance, I'd prefer an email. But we can do it over the phone as well, especially if you have a short list. And then I can have the materials you want to look at pulled and ready for you. So that might be a good reason to make a research appointment. Also, we do have a limited number of computers. So you may want to make a research appointment if you know you're going to be logging in to use any of our newspaper databases, for example, or if you want to use Ancestry Libraries Edition or Heritage Quest in our building. That's when I would recommend making an appointment. If you know you're going to be using computer and machine equipments, or you have a really good idea of what you want to look at and you want me to pull it and have it ready for you when you come in.
Also, if I am researching, would I research the surname or would I research the area that they lived in, or both?
I would say both. Since so much of the collection is devoted to family histories, you may want to do that subject keyword search from home in the library catalog and see what we have for a particular family surname before you make a research trip down to the state library. Again, if something is published pre-1926, I would definitely recommend Googling the title and seeing if you can find it somewhere online, and then you can access it right from home. However, sometimes we have a particular surname, but it's not your correct branch of the family. And especially if you know where roughly they were from, then it's good to go into the location research. So our collection works either way. You could even do it by religious groups. Like, for instance, if you knew your ancestor was a Quaker at a particular meeting, or they were a bigwig in Quaker history, they might be mentioned in one of our general Quaker books that we have in the religious section of the genealogy collection as well.
I didn't know you had that religious thing, because that's something that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
That is.
Yep, we have books by religious denomination. In addition, they're right after the heraldry, right before all the European ethnic books start.
I had a question during this. Do they still produce city directories?
No,
No.
I don't believe that they produce city directories. I think they were just completely replaced by phone books eventually.
Right.
Because phone books essentially do the same thing, except they don't usually list an occupation, but all of the same governmental information, the business directory. Probably the only thing they don't have is the ad guides, but some phone books even have the nice crisscross directories too.
Mm.
So I know that city directories were produced up through the 1990s in some cases, but I think at this point they've pretty much gone the way of the dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
How does a crisscross directory work? I've used city directories, but I don't ever remember seeing those in there.
So the crisscross directory is also known as a street directory. It just shows you, it's organized alphabetically by streets, and then it lists all the individual addresses until you get to a cross street. So it identifies, so you can look and you can put together how a particular neighborhood looked. So for instance, it might be useful if you were researching, if you wanted to know who your ancestors' neighbors were, or whether or not there was a church 2 doors down from their house, something like that.
That's great to know. I'm used to city directories and I never thought to look for that. I didn't know they were in there.
Yeah, they weren't so much in the earlier directories, but as you move closer and closer to the 20th century, they become more and more common. So if you're looking at something from the early 19th century, like if you were looking at an 1826 Philadelphia directory, I don't know that there would be a crisscross directory.
That might have been why I didn't find it, because I was looking for earlier people probably. That's good to know though.
It is, it's incredibly useful.
Technically, you could find an address in an 1825 city directory and then go to a newer one and then look up that same address and find it that way.
Yes, you could, as long as the house number, the street
Right.
name hadn't changed.
Right. You can look up on Google Earth.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, one of the other really great resources that we have that I didn't mention tonight is one of our databases called Fire Insurance Maps Online, and those are all the Sanborn maps, and those don't show like property ownership. They're not like plat maps, but they show the outlines of structures of buildings. So that's another really great way to put together areas where your ancestor lived, and you can see what their neighborhood looked like. And they're usually revised over time, so you can see things like when street numbers changed, or when neighborhoods were changed, when neighborhoods were demolished. It's a really fantastic resource for doing historic house research as well. Like you can try to identify when a particular building was built. Like if you know if it was built in about 1910 but aren't 100% sure, you might be able to find a fire insurance map from 1900 and one from 1915, and maybe it's in one and it's not in the other one, and that might confirm the actual date. Or maybe you're lucky enough where you get like 2 editions in a row, and it's not in one, but it's in the next one. So there are a lot of useful things in the state library collection for genealogy or historic home research, which I did not mention in the presentation. We also have a collection of Sanborn maps in paper form, and we have many of them on microfilm. The easiest way to use it is to come in and use our fire insurance map online, and that popped into my head because you mentioned Google Earth. You can search, there's like a name index you can search by, but you can also put in, it has a Google Maps overlay. So you can put in the address, search it on Google Maps, and it will show you a division between like the modern Google Maps and what's there now, and then the Sanborn map and where it would be, or where it would have been in the past. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad you were able to come tonight, and I really hope you enjoyed.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.